morning, everyone, and I hope there was many of you had a wonderful Mother's Day yesterday. I know I did. My family was very sweet to me. And good morning, Tim. Good morning, Mary. And good morning, Philip. Great to see you guys. Today we've got a really interesting conversation for us to talk about how to learn how to win new listings during COVID-19 and beyond by delivering a list of qualified buyers to potential sellers. So we've got an expert on that topic today with us, Charles Williams. He's from a company called Buyside. If any of you may have it in your brokerage, or if not, he'll tell you a little bit about it today. But we're going to really talk about the idea of how do you identify and bring qualified buyers to the table to ensure that a customer, a potential client is going to say, yeah, let me list my house with you. So before we jump in, just wanted to remind everybody, if you have any questions, and please feel free, we love it when we get questions. Go to the blue bar there. There's a little gray triangle. Click on that gray triangle. It will open up, and then just type in a question or a comment if there's anything that makes sense for you during this conversation. Okay. So I'd love to have that. And let's just jump in. So we've got, like I say, Charles Williams. He's the founder and CEO of Buyside. Charles, how long has Buyside been around now?
Good question. So about 9 years now. I started
Really?
out of my brother's basement and moved to our shed. So we upgraded, and and that was about 9 years ago now. Now we're
Time goes so fast. We've known Charles, I think, since just about the beginning of your adventure. So it's been kind of fun to see how well the company has done and the great impact it's made on so many brokers and agents around the country. So let's just jump in on the topic. Let's just this whole topic of list to last. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that whole concept inspire you to create Buyside, Charles?
Yeah, good question, Marilyn. So first of all, happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. Happy Mother's Day, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And to everyone else on the phone. Speaking of which, my mother is actually a real estate broker in upstate New York, and my cousins and aunts are all in real estate. So naturally, when it came time for me to choose a profession, I went to school for electrical engineering. So yeah, I got into engineering, and at night I was buying and selling homes. I bought sold 20 times by the age of 30. So I quickly found a little bit of a niche in selling properties very quickly. And agents would always ask me, hey, Charles, how do you find the buyer? And I tell them I don't look for the buyer, I look for the agents that have the buyer. And I turn that question around to the agents. You have a system in your office where you can look up all the agents that have listings, called the MLS. But how about all the agents that have the other half of inventory, right? Every marketplace has supply and demand. Econ 101, right? Remember that old chart in school?
Yep.
But there was no nobody really knew how many buyers were out there. They said, hey, we have weekly office meetings where agents stand up and say, I have a new buyer, or they have, mass emails. And so nobody really knew what the buyer count was, or how many buyers are out there, or what buyers were looking for. And it really ties back to the listing agent. If you knew that there were 33 buyers looking for a 3-bed and 2-bath, how could that help you on a listing appointment? If you knew there were 33 buyers looking for a 3-bed and 2-bath, how could that help you generate seller leads? So the list to last, you're right, has always been around. What we're using is help agents use the buy side or use the buyer market to help them list the last, help them in the listing presentation, help them generate listings. It's a very powerful piece, and it's a piece that's used in many different industries that I'm happy to share a few different examples if you like, but it's used all over the place except for real estate. So what we try to do is help agents get the inside track or the advantage of leveraging buyer data to list the last.
Awesome. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, AKA the name Buyside, right? So why don't you talk to us a little bit about this? Like, how do you find the owners? How do you find the potential buyers for the owners? Like, how do you, if I'm an agent listening today or a small brokerage, tell us a little bit more about the stats behind all of this.
Sure. Yeah. So list to last. Like, if you ask any agent, what's the most valuable lead? What are they going to say 9 times out of 10? It's the seller lead, right? It's coming after the homeowner. And so the real challenge here is try to understand the homeowner a little bit, find out who the homeowner is, why should they listen to you? You know, a lot of agents send out cat calendars and college football calendars and stuffed quinoa recipes and so lots of different things to do. But what is it, the one thing, what is that that connects you with that homeowner, something that they really care about? And if you think about it, it's right, it's the home. And even more so, the home is their most valuable asset that they own, hands down. If you look at some of the stats, they say by the time the average US homeowner retires, 83% of their net wealth is coming from their home equity. It's not coming from their 401k or Roth IRA. A good chunk of their nest egg is coming from their home equity. Yet there's dashboards and everything, there's things to track, right? Their stock market portfolio, this is a great time to talk about that. We'll get into just a minute. The market conditions today. But the home is their asset. That's what you want to focus on. And there's different angles you can use to help really, real creative to help you stand above the rest in talking to the homeowner about their home. And it's not all the time. It's like, hey, do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? It's more about talking to them about them understanding their home, that it is an asset. Not only when they sell, they're going to tap into equity, but there's opportunities to tap into equity today. Yeah, you're not going to get the sale right now, but the fact of the matter is you're helping them with their home as their asset that you might have sold them 3 years ago. And you're going to be looked at as that trusted advisor so that when they talk to the next person about their home, your name's going to come up. So that's important. Another important fact is NAR statistics, if you look at some of their stats around who the buyers are and their survey that they do every year, right? In terms of the buyer market, 2/3 of them, and it's gone up every year, are essentially repeat buyers. In other words, that buyer that you're talking to, that a lot of times agents will throw away leads because they don't match that particular listing they have. But let's really engage that buyer because 2/3 of the time, that buyer has a home to sell. So yes, it's a buyer lead, and that may be your first trigger in your mind, but what you really should look at it, put a different pair of glasses on and look at that, that's not just a buyer lead. There's a pretty good probability that they also have a home to sell. And so when you're trying to go buy seller leads, you really don't have to. You can just farm all of the buyer leads that you get and find out more about their home and their current situation. Not only are you going to come off across as a sort of an advisor, but at the end of the day, you're going to go after that gold mine, which is the whole list the last thing, right? So another way to use the buy side, use all those buyer leads to get in front of the seller lead. And the last point there is about the opportunity itself, about the missed opportunity in terms of the equity that we talked about a minute ago. So these homeowners, yeah, they might not sell today, even that buyer you engage that has a home. But today, you know, there's equity opportunities that they could tap into, and there's a lot left on the table that homeowners just don't, like they have to do the math in their head. All right, let's see, I have to pull my latest mortgage statement. I got to check the value of my home. I'm not going to buy an appraiser. Well, gee, I wonder if my agent could help me with that. My agent who sold me the home, they should know what the approximate value of my home is, minus what I owe in it. Oh, wow, I sure could use an extra $20,000, $30,000 today, right? So you come across as that expert, farm your network, and then maybe in a year from now or 2 years, whenever they go to sell, they're going to come back to you. So those are just 3 ways and 3 little nuggets of stats that you can use in your marketing or just use overall in your terms of your business plan of how you're going to go after the seller or the homeowner in terms of your list to last approach.
So I have a question for the audience and for you, Charles. So if you guys want to type into the questions, what are you seeing in terms of buyer interest and or activity right now? And I know, Charles, you deal with brokerages and agents from all across the country. Are you seeing broker or buyer interest up, down, staying the same? What do you see during this time? Are people cautious? Are they jumping in, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question for whoever brought it out. Yes, we see billions, literally billions of activities on homeowners all across the country, pinging different systems. And, a broad brush here, as we know, real estate's very local. But if you want to paint a broad brush, online activity certainly is dipped a little bit. More significant is the offline activity obviously has dipped. And I mean, I don't have to be an expert on a panel here to tell you that, right? You're seeing
right.
Showings are basically shut off in a lot of markets, or open houses are. So that's the obvious thing. But the cool thing here, the cool thing I say, because real estate, right? The economy in terms of real estate was doing very well before all this. There was a lot of activity. You didn't have to convince people to put offers in. You didn't have to convince people, by and large, to list. Like there was a market there. And then came this sort of, mandate that literally people were locked into their homes essentially, right? So pent up demand in its purest form. Um, so there's still the demand there. There's still healthy demand there, and it's different in different parts of the country. We're seeing that. We're seeing online activity in terms of views, in terms of saved properties, saved searches, inquiries on properties. We're still seeing a healthy amount there. It is certainly down in most parts of the country, but it's not down like the stock market's down 30%. Like it's not down that significant in most parts.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, that is reflective that there is truly pent up demand out there. That's the good part. So once the chains are lifted off the gates and people are allowed to come out, start looking at properties, we do see that, is it going to be a bum rush of the gates like Disney World at 9 a.m.? I don't know. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you that there is demand out there right now. And if you are going to be the agent that can help them, now's the time to get that inventory, that list to last. Now's the time to have it ready. So once those chains are lifted, there is that demand out there. We are seeing it that you have the inventory able to serve them. And those are the ones that are going to win at the end of the day, are the agents and brokers that have the inventory today or very shortly, once these chains are lifted, versus the ones that are going to have to ramp up for the next 3 to 6 months. So whoever's on this call today, that's the first great step. That shows us that you're willing to take that step to grab the inventory now, keep your list to last mentality, and then you'll be ready for that demand when it's no longer pent up, when it's allowed to come out. So I hope that helps answer it. We will look to put together a couple charts on what we're seeing and overall activity. We do see both online and offline activity. So it is pretty powerful to be able to see that, be able to get the insight on what's coming.
So Dennis says in his market that there's low inventory, so it's keeping them looking. Michelle says I'm seeing buyers that are actively looking. Agate says buyers are sitting on the fence, interestingly. And then Philip says he's seen an increasement in investment buyers holding and renting in the area where they buy low and then they rent high. That makes sense, right? This is a good time to jump in. We actually did a session with a real estate investor with Rental Beast just a couple of weeks ago, and he said exactly that same thing. It's not that prices are really coming down, because they're not, but mortgage rates are great, right? So it's helping people to be able to get in when they might not have been able to other times. So this is a really interesting stat. Why don't you talk to us about this? This is really interesting, Charles.
Sure, yeah. So we just talked about the homeowner as our targeted audience, right? That's who most agents are going after, especially if you have that list to last business approach. So what is it specifically that homeowners want to hear from you about? Why would they call you? Why would they reach out to you? Why would they trust you? What is it that they want from a real estate agent that they can't get across the interweb, right? And there, you probably know some of these, but there's been studies done about this, and every year there's surveys done, whether it's a Zillow survey or Realtor.com or you name it. But it's always the same two things that rise to the top. It's always the same things that are coming back in terms of what homeowners want from the real estate agent. And it's, what's the price of my home? What would you price at? What do you value at? And are there buyers out there? Help me find the buyer. That's what they care about. That's what they want to know. So when they come to you, they may think they know the price of their home, right? What's the one thing, what does everybody think about Zillow on this call here today, right? All right, and that's fine. You may have your thoughts about Zillow, but who likes Zillow, right? Whether we like it or not, the homeowners, they have it ingrained. They know about it. They see the Super Bowl commercials. They know that Zestimate. And so the good thing here is you can help clear that elephant in the room. And the next time you talk with that homeowner, they think they know. That's the operative word. But there's lots of computer models out there. That's what the Zestimate is at the end of the day. And so they think they know the property owner, and they'll ask you about it. And you could say, look, Zillow has an AVM. It's an automated valuation model. There's lots of AVMs out there. You have RPR. Every agent sitting on this phone, on this call right now, could tap into RPR. There's an AVM sitting in RPR right now. So there's another resource to just now put doubt, right? It's almost like the jury. It's like, is there a sliver of doubt, and they can't convict, right? So the same thing here is like, give a little bit of doubt that, hey, here's an AVM, here's another computer AVM. The reason why I'm valuable as an agent is I'm going to look at not just computer models. By the way, none of those computer models in that case takes in consideration the MLS, unless I'm using the RVM. So you have public data, you have MLS level data, but that's only the supply side of the market. As a real estate agent, I also understand the buy side of the market, which goes into price, right? Again, Econ 101. So these are ways where you can use, that's what the homeowner wants. They want to know the price of my home. And then the lastly is, do you have buyers for it? And of course, every agent, of course we have buyers. We have buyers lined up around the corner. We have hundreds of buyers. But do you really have those buyers? And how can you use that to your advantage? Those are some tactics we can talk about as well. You have your fingertips on the buyers, kind of going back to what I spoke about earlier is, Chuck, Charles, how do you find the buyers so quickly? Where are the buyers? How do you find them? We'll give you a couple little tricks and tips of what you can do to help answer that one question and come across as that knowledge expert in the space.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you're right. I mean, price, everybody knows that, but having a way to quantify the number of buyers that you have, that not that you just have that, I mean, that's one thing, but really what matters is the buyers for that particular home in that particular price point in that particular neighborhood, right? That's what really matters.
Pre-qualified, that are working with an agent, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. So let's talk about this. This is helpful.
So yeah, about the buyers, like this is great, Charles, that makes sense. And, I put my marketing, I have a cute couple looking in this neighborhood, or, hey, we have buyers, list my home. I'm already doing that. And you are probably, and those are very generic. As a homeowner, does that resonate with me? Well, it does according to that last slide we just showed, right? I do want to know if you have the buyers, but any agent can say that, right? What I would encourage you to do is what Marilyn just suggested. Be very specific. Pick a number through all your stats, right? You'd go through your stats, you'd go through your existing list of buyers. And let's pose that right now. Where would you get your buyers? Maybe you guys can comment in the chat box.
Yeah.
Give us some ideas of, look, I'll give you till Wednesday, and I want you to come back to me, and I want you to tell me exactly how many buyers or people searching for homes do you have your fingertips on? Where would you go look? Would you go look in your CRM? Would you go look in all the leads that you pulled in? Maybe you have a lead routing system where you're receiving these from. Would you look at all the Zillow inquiries or leads you've gotten? Maybe all your open house sign-ins that you've had for the past 3 months, right? Maybe you have this list there that you've cultivated. How about your MLS, right? Most MLSs have a system called reverse prospecting. So you can tap into that and see essentially a search of all the saved searches. So where would you go to go collect all of these buyer activities, all of these people that have shown the interest of buying a property? And what I want you to do is compile that list, make that list. Ideally, you can make that list by bedroom count or by price range. And so you would have a list that you could sort, right? Just basic Excel functions, go across the column, do some filtering. And then now what you could do in your social media post next week is say, you can target Broward County, for instance, and say, we have 32 people looking at Broward County between $250,000 and $350,000. Now you got my attention as a homeowner versus just saying I have a cute couple, which I know I get a postcard once a week that says that, right? Back when postcards were being sent. But that's something that resonates with homeowners. If you can throw stats and make sure you can back it up, right? You don't want to throw some fake numbers out there, because I've seen that done. And then they get called into a meeting and then they fumble. And that's not good, right? You want to have credibility, you want to have honesty and integrity coming into these. So compile that list and be able to talk from that. The more you can study that yourself gives you indication of where people are looking. gives you an indication of where you can prospect, right? So really understanding the demand and understanding at least where you could touch your fingertips inside of your own technology, inside of your CRM, inside of your MLS, pull that out and have your list of buyers that you could, or get together with your team if you're on a team, compile that, have everybody anonymize it and compile their list together is another idea. You know, your weekly office meetings, or, you know, a lot of those are done virtually today. Maybe you could send out an Excel or Google Sheet. There's lots of creative ideas. Happy to, you know, share them in the comments, and maybe Marilyn can mention them during the call here, some ideas that folks have.
For sure. And actually, let's touch on pre-qualified buyers for a second. And I, again, love to hear from you guys on the call about this. You know, what's the, you know, there's pre-approved, pre-qualified. What does that mean today? Like, what should if you're working with a buyer, let's flip it for the other side for a second, right? What should we be doing in this time frame right now to make sure that we've got a buyer that actually makes sense? You know, there's someone that you could actually put on that list, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, so the first step is to create that list, like you just said, Marilyn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Next is you would ideally like to score that list somehow, or tier it. I know anybody from Tom Ferry to Ninja Selling will all kind of tell you to do something like that, but you'd want to score them based upon, internally we have a 4-star scoring system where we've asked a lot of agents, will you consider a strong buyer? And typically there are 4 things that come to top of the list are, when are they looking to move? So it's a timing element. Are they looking to move in the next 90 days or whenever, or the next year? So whatever their urgency is, there's a timing element. There is a sort of a qualification in terms of financial qualification status. Now, I'm not going to get into the pre-approved versus pre-qualified. I'm not touching that. Every brokerage,
Right.
your broker teaches you a different way, or your lender has different. So I suggest you sit down with your loan officer and find out what the definitions are internally on how you qualify, because there is a significant difference between the two in most cases. But there's another element to that, and that is cash. So not all buyers have to go through, like we heard a minute ago. One agent on the call here today is focused on the investor world. Well, a lot of times they're not going through the traditional lender process. So that doesn't mean they're not qualified. It just means they have a different mechanism of qualification. So make sure you consider cash as one of those. You also want to know if they have any contingencies. So do they have to sell first? Or does the home sale have to be contingent upon selling their home first? Do they have other properties? Are they a business owner, which makes it a little challenging? So what are the contingencies that are involved there in terms of buying the next home? And then the 4th qualification is kind of interesting, but they said, are they working with an agent? In other words, have they been pre-vetted by somebody in our industry? Or are they just coming in off of Zillow, clicking at a property at 3 a.m.? Have they been vetted in some capacity to answer all those questions we just went through? Are they pre-qualified? What's their timing? Do they have anything to sell first? You want some sort of comfort level that if you're going to spend time with them or on this opportunity or have a little price flexibility, or you're going to talk about this new buyer with your seller, you want to make sure that they have either worked with an agent or not. If they're not, well, shoot, that's an opportunity for you to pick them up or your team. So that's how we looked at it, just by surveying thousands of agents of what they would consider. Those 4 kind of rose to the top. So if you're creating your list, potentially you could add 4 columns to the list of all those buyers you collected, and maybe you can answer yes or no, or price point wise what those answers are. And then again, something else you could sort it by. And maybe your next marketing piece in 2 weeks is, hey, we have 2 buyers, highly qualified, looking in this area for this price point. If you know of anyone thinking of selling, let us know. So that's very real, very relevant, and very much going to get somebody to raise their hand if they do have something to sell in that area. So again, another way to take your list and supercharge it a bit.
Well, and I like that it wouldn't, I think when you start using words like hundreds and thousands, people go, yeah, right? But if you said, I have 2 people specifically looking in this neighborhood for this price point, with the kind of features that your house has, that's a lot closer in. Like that feels a lot more real, and it is a lot more real, right?
Exactly.
Dennis says that his number one thing by far is pre-qualified. So if they can't afford it, I don't care what else they have. I don't want to talk to them, or I don't want to misrepresent them, I guess would be the way to say it, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
probably
right. I mean, that's the worst thing you could do, right? You could say, yeah, I have 12 buyers for your property. You get them to sign the listing agreement, and then they're going to want to know where those 12 buyers are. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, none of those are really qualified. So I'm going to do all my traditional marketing all over. And it's like a bait and switch. And
yeah.
you don't want to come across, our industry is filled with those type of professionals, or lack of professional, I should say, unfortunately. So it's almost like the eBay thing, like, or Craigslist, when you were going to sell a car and you don't tell the person about the door ding. Well, shoot, they're going to see it eventually. Like,
Right.
just be upfront and honest. Like, I have 12 buyers, 3 are pre-qualified, 4 in the process of being pre-qualified, others have contingencies. And so that itself, you may look at it as a negative or bad, but what you're doing, to Marilyn's point, is you're coming across as an expert. This is information, this is knowledge that these homeowners can't get anywhere else. They can't
Right.
go on a Zillow and it's not as easy as getting this estimate, right? This is information that, as a real estate professional, you have, that you want to be able to show and reflect that you really understand the market, you really understand both sides of the equation. And going back to those two things that the surveys have said, you're going to come off as that sort of knowledge expert in those two areas that they care about most.
Exactly. Dennis says listing agents always ask for only pre-qualified. So if you're going to do it, you got to make sure that's at least one of the criteria, because I mean, it makes sense. And especially right now, I would think, because everybody's economic situation is changing in real time. So like my daughter's a senior, we're, looking at colleges and scholarships and all that stuff. And they're like, well, tell me about your financial situation. It's like, well, which one? The one now or the one my tax return from last year reflected, right? It isn't
Right.
necessarily the same thing. So it's really important right now. Okay, let's just keep going here. So let's talk about how do you capture those seller leads? This is actually an example of your tool, right? So maybe we can just look at this quickly. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, so this is one facet of how we've helped agents, and we're currently helping agents, and we'll continue helping agents to do everything we just talked about in the last 20 minutes or so, is come across as that knowledge expert. The first time you do that, it's got to be warm, it's got to be inviting. The homeowner's got to have some sort of control rather than listen to you give a presentation. It's got to be in their world. So the easiest way to do that is, I know you're probably all familiar with sort of what's my home worth type of tools or approaches. This approach is going to answer not just what's the approximate price of my home, but the other question, which was, do you have buyers for it? So it's something that, if you have a what's your home worth type tool, that you can advance as well on your own. But yeah, this is a lot what our partners and our clients are doing and our agents are doing, is they're presenting where the homeowner can put in their address, right? It's very light. Shoot, you could do it for the homeowner and invite them to it. But it's a way for them to get a digest on their home, right? Their home is their most relevant, most valuable asset, as we learned a little bit earlier. So this is a report that you could put in front of the homeowner at their own time, their own control, just like everybody's used to today, that shows them that you know the answer to the two questions they care about most. What's the price of my home, and do you have buyers for it? So they would put in their address, and they would be able to see up to 3 different AVMs, or 3 different prices, computer models, what their home might be worth. It's really going to raise the question in their mind. Wow, this is really confusing. Can you help me out, Dennis? Help me out, help me understand these computer models. And that's where you could shed some light. And it's also going to show high-level metrics and high-level visuals of what the demand is. Like, we do a pretty neat little heat map. For the first time ever, now you're able to see demand on a map. You could see what areas are more interest than other areas, what areas have more inquiries than other areas. So again, we're helping the agents come across as, hey, I know this area. I know how many, but by a bar chart, I know how many buyers are looking for a 3-bedroom versus a 2-bedroom. By price point, I know how many buying activity there is, a 250 versus 550. So stats like that you could put in front of homeowners, where It's just enough to get them excited, but it's not too much where they can do anything other than contact Dennis or contact Mary.
Exactly.
And that's, again, what you want to do is high-level metrics, kind of show them you understand the market, give it to them at their own time. No forced registrations or anything. Like, that's the most annoying thing in the world. I don't know why tech companies do it today, because I'm always going to put in rogerrabbit@gmail.com just to get to the next step, right? I mean, come on. What you want here is, again, what Dennis said earlier, is you want not only qualified buyers, but as a list to last mentality and strategy, you want qualified sellers as well, right? You want to know that these are real people, not just a nosy neighbor. And so you want to show relevant content to that homeowner, so when they do want to ask a question, you're not wasting your time or some Roger Rabbit's time. Like, this is qualified sellers. This is their home. They are seriously interested in learning more about the market for a home like theirs.
And this slide, this is something actually I was going to ask you, but I'm glad we have this in here. I've seen this work for many of our broker clients very, very well. If you look at the bottom of that screen, those are actually 3 different AVMs, right, Charles?
That's right. Yeah.
And look at how every number is different. And so what does a buyer do with that, or a seller do with that? They're like, maybe I should call someone that actually knows what's going on in the local market, because clearly these guys are all over the place, right?
That's right. I mean, like we talked about before, whether it's Zillow and the Zestimate or any of these AVMs out there, the fact of the matter is, like, it's already out there. Now, what are you going to do about it? How can you use this to your advantage? And so there's, I mean, we're connected to about 10 different AVMs. It really doesn't matter. And the point that there's 10 out there is great, because that's so much more confusing to a homeowner. Which one? I mean, here's just 3, right? I'm not going to show 10 and completely overwhelm it, but here's just 3. Look at the price difference between these, right? Huge range. How do I decide? How do the agents do this? How do you decide what price? These are the questions that are now going through my mind as a homeowner. And so what you're not seeing there is there's a big call to action underneath it. Is confused? Contact your agent today. And it has your name. Contact Dennis today. Contact Mary today. And that's part of the, right, you're raising questions. You're showing your expertise, that there's lots of AVMs out there. But let me help you navigate these uncharted waters in your mind. I've done this. I've charted these waters hundreds of times. Let me help you navigate through this. And I'm going to be able to help you get your home on the market and answer those 2 questions that you care about most. And so this is just a light way. Again, they could do it at their own time. They feel like they're in control, but they're going to need to come to you at some point.
Well, Dennis has an interesting comment. He said, he understands what we're saying, but in my geography, the first question a seller has, if they're staying local, is, will I be able to find a home before I have to sell mine? Because I assume, Dennis, in your market, inventory is tight, right? So that's interesting. Like, this can be half of the equation, but you can actually tell the other half of the equation too about what homes are available through normal property searches, right? It's an interesting blend of trying to, how do I buy and how do I sell, and vice versa, how do I sell and how do I buy? It's an interesting time that we're in right now.
Well, I think, and to this point, I mean, let's be creative and use this the other way, right? So now you have a great problem to have. If there's such a great problem, you have somebody that wants to sell in a tight market, but they need to buy something, right? So what do you have now from them? You have their buying criteria, right? You just told me you're going to qualify them. So now you have a buyer looking for a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in Broward County or a certain school district for between this price, or $550,000 to $650,000. That, as a homeowner, who's the next homeowner, right? Homeowner B, who's thinking about selling, use that to your advantage. Like, that's what they want to know. Take your seller, who's also a buyer, take their criteria, market the heck out of that. Get that in front of the next set of homeowners, your own client base, for shoot, right? 2/3 of your client base are homeowners. Hey guys, this is no BS here. I have a buyer. They're pre-qualified. Yes, they have a contingency, but they already have their home on the market, and it's already got the next buyer for their house. I need to find them the next house. Here's what they're looking for. Is anybody thinking of selling? There are buyers, and I have them. Here's just one. And we actually had an agent in New Jersey do something very similar to that. And it was actually her aunt in her Facebook network said, hey, Linda, I see you have buyers. That's not the perfect buyer for my house, but I am thinking about selling. Do you have another buyer? And she ended up getting a listing out of it. So it's a great way to not only help that scenario and situation out, Dennis, but then again, you become an expert in your market, in your network, in your sphere by showing off that you have specifics around the buyer market right now. And instead of screaming to your network, hey guys, I'm still in real estate, give me your listings, right? That's
Right.
annoying. This is something really relevant. It's going to really flush out the next seller that ideally, yeah, you can do a nice trade-off there. But that's a way to spin it and use your expertise of the buy side and generate the next listing opportunity.
So you're basically taking one lead and turning it into two, or taking a buyer and a seller and turning it into four, right? It just starts multiplying on itself. It's really
About, yeah, it's about being resourceful. I mean,
Yep.
look at me being resourceful. There's my two newest programmers there. That's being resourceful in this time and age, right? You got to
Exactly.
take the resources you have and put them to work.
Gotcha. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, this is really fun stuff. So yeah, I mean, this is looking at Property Snapshot. This is just some of the things again that you guys offer, and you do have programs for. This is mainly a broker offering, right? But it can go for brokers that are really of all sizes now, smaller and larger brokers.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's all about leveraging, like you can do all this stuff. I mean, I'm giving you little tips and tricks here that for sure you can go do. You don't need buy side. Um, we just happen to package it up and make it a click of a button, makes it a lot easier on brokers. But this is another one example of how to use the real-time demand to not just attract that homeowner, but you also want to nurture that homeowner and be front of them on a weekly, monthly basis, right? You know, you can still have virtual birthday parties and virtual whatever graduations, and real estate's always a topic, right? So you want to make sure your logo, your brand, your face is front and center with that homeowner, not just on your one campaign that you're going to do as soon as we hang up this webinar here, but you want to be in front of them on a regular basis with something that's highly relevant. So you can subscribe them to newsletters and what you think about the current market, and that's fine and all. But again, what's really relevant to them? Their home. Their home is their largest asset. So stay in front of them on a monthly basis with, hey, what's your home currently doing? What's the market for your home? Has the values gone up or down over the last 30, 60, 90 days? Have more buyers hit the market? So you could do that activity. Everything we just spoke about in terms of gathering your buyer list, in terms of marketing your buyer list and tracking seller leads. I would also suggest nurturing those seller leads. Don't just make it a one and done. Stay in front of them regularly with relevant content, not cat calendars and stuffed quinoa pepper recipes like we talked about. It's got to be relevant to their home. So do that on a monthly basis at least. And then once they do pick up the phone and say, hey, Dennis, hey, Mary, hey, Bob, I do want to talk to you more about listing my home based upon the last monthly report you just sent out. My valuation is this, or the new buyers have entered the market. Can you tell me more about how you would sell my home? Tell me more about the two questions I care about most. And so you can take the next step, take all that buyer data, take the list that you cultivated, take those AVMs in with you, right? And you're gonna sit down with them or do a virtual call like this. I know there's a Cloud CMA just announced a live CMA version. There's lots of different listing presentations, and you could marry it with your list of buyers and say, hey, Janice and Bob, whatever, thanks for having me over here today. You know, yes, I'm going to put your home on 100 websites and attract buyers. Great. Every broker's going to say or agent's going to say they do that. But here's how I'm different. I already have buyers. I put in your address before I came over here. Let me tell you about the real-time demand for a home just like yours. So
Exactly.
you can see, right, how powerful is that? And you can use those stats. And now, you know, the first time we talked about this, they were in control. Now it's your turn. Now they've come to you. Now they're putting the mic in your hands and they're saying, Dennis, you're the expert. You showed me all this stuff. Clearly, this isn't as easy as putting my home up on Zillow. Like, tell me more about the market. And this is where you're not just going to be a real estate agent. You're going to be a knowledge agent. You're going to be able to talk about the real-time demand. Like, yes, this area is hot. Why is this hot? Well, because a new factory just went in or a new business just went in. So people are moving here. So there's things that you can talk about that they might not know living in their own little world. So this is, again, using a listing presence, just another use case of leveraging the buy side to become that knowledge agent.
Gotcha. Great, Jeff. So yeah, so I mean, as you can see, there's all kinds of cool things we can do here. These are just some examples. Again, Charles has a tool. You can actually, if you want to learn more, I guess we should just reach out to you, Charles at getbuyside.com.
Sure.
Or give you a call at 484-580-9260. Those are both on the screen there. So if anybody has any interest in learning more about this, if you by chance are from a brokerage that has Buyside and you have not yet used it, I would highly recommend you check it out. And I know there's great training available that many brokers have access to. So if by chance you've heard of this but haven't seen exactly what it is yet, definitely check it out because there's some cool stuff. And we do have Amy Gorse. In fact, I'm going to send that to you tomorrow. Amy Gorse is with us on the call. She's from CoreLogic, so she represents Matrix, if many of you use that, or Realist. And she can actually tell us, I'm going to ask her to give us a little overview of how to do reverse prospecting in the MLS so you can see how to do it there too, because it's available already. Not at the same level of package I would say that Buyside is doing, but at least to get the names and the ways for you to figure out how much demand there really is out there. She can help you with that. Yeah, so that's she's tomorrow, and then on Wednesday we've got Back At You. They're going to talk to us about Instagram, which frankly to me is still a bit of a black hole about how do we use that in real estate. So they're going to show some cool ideas about how to do that if that's a tool that you've been thinking about and don't quite understand it yet. Yeah, so that's this week. So I wanted to also let you know that if there's anybody on the call that wants us to sign you up automatically for all the upcoming coffee chats, because they come in daily, just send us your email, first name, last name, and email address to Marilyn at RE Technology, and we'll get you registered. Oh, and Esther wanted to see the phone number again. Let me put that back up real quick so she can see that. It is 484. It's away at the bottom on the blue bar if you can't see that. 484-580-9260. So give Charles a call and he can tell you all about it. It's a really cool tool. And then finally, if you wanted to make sure that you get recordings of all these, because you've been here today, excuse me, you will get this one automatically. But if you'd like to subscribe to all of the RE Technology Inc. YouTube coffee chat recordings and other webinars that we do, they're all educational like this. Just go to YouTube, type in RE Technology Inc., just like the way I've done it there, hit subscribe, and then put that little bell, make that dark, fill it in solid, I think it says select all, and then you'll get the coffee chat recordings. And if you are part of an MLS where we offer RE Technology, check that out because you'll be able to get this for free if you don't already. If you're not, for whatever reason, we're happy to give you a free 3-month subscription because we want everybody to take full advantage of all this great virtual selling education that's out there. So thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate you being here today. I think that was a great topic to talk about. How do we, bring qualified buyers into our listing conversations, and how do we use those qualified buyers to get new listing presentations too, and vice versa, right? So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. Hey, in the spirit of today's, everybody should do something good and nice for somebody else. So if you got value out of today's RE Technology webinar, I would suggest you share tomorrow's with everybody and with somebody in your network. Either a one-off email, say how good of a time you had on today's webinar or how informative it was. Share it on social and get the word out about these webinars. So that's your one good thing. Get it done before noon if you're on the West Coast, and you can enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully come in and check out all the things that your MLS can do for you to help you grow your business as well. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take care. Bye now.